misconception I would have had that everybody was really poor and unhappy and miserable. It was the moment I arrived in Nairobi airport, within 3 hours, I realized that was not the way it was. But yeah, unfortunately, maybe sometimes Africa is portrayed in the Western world as negatively. So I came away with a very positive experience, and I think you should portray a more positive outlook. Maybe that's what you're trying to do with these videos. What struck me most about Ghana, I'm only here 4 days, is the friendliness of the people. I haven't met any anti-white feeling. That's a good thing. I found the Ghanaian people particularly friendly, very happy, very delighted to be here. Very happy people, which is wonderful to see because you don't get that in the Western world.
The image of Africa has been distorted around the globe, and we are using YouTube videos to help change the negative narrative about Africa one step at a time. And I'm here to unlock the real Africa with my mom here. Hi, how are you?
Hi, very well, thank you.
Please let me know who you are and what you do.
My name is Anne Sinnott. I am a doctor from Republic of Ireland, visiting my son who's doing NGO work with GVI. But what's interesting for me, I worked in Africa in 1991 and 1992, over in Kenya, albeit, which is East Africa, obviously, as a doctor in a mission hospital. So it was very emotional for me to come back here and see my son doing the same thing 30 years later, although he's not a doctor, but it's nice for me. But I have not been back in Africa in 1992 to 32 years. So I see huge changes. It's really moved on. It's a lot more. There's a lot more wealth. I can see there's a burgeoning middle class that it wasn't there on my day, which is great to see in some ways. But I do hope that the wealth can be redistributed. And I feel if Africans are becoming more wealthy, well, that can only be a good thing and will filter down to everybody, I would hope. I hope the wealth will be distributed. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So as a white person, visited a few African countries.
Yes.
All right. I would like to know what you can make of the borders, because Africa has been divided with borders. We can't travel from Ghana to Togo free. But you in Ireland, you can move from one country to another. Do you think Africa should remove the borders, or we should keep the borders?
I know the borders have messed up a lot of African countries, say Kenya and Tanzania. One country, the line was there because one monarch wanted Kilimanjaro and the other wanted Mount Kenya or something ridiculous. And I know those lines have interfered across tribes, and some tribes are this side of the border, others are that, and that is not a good thing. So that's contributed to tribalism, and
all right.
I think the borders are not good. Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the good things that you so far experienced in Ghana?
Well, what struck me most about Ghana, I'm only here 4 days, is the friendliness of the people. I haven't met any anti-white feeling, which I would have met in Kenya back in the early 90s. A little bit was sort of like passive aggression, a little bit, which I'm not finding this time. So I find everybody friendly. My son is much more integrated into the community than I was. Now, I was living in a hospital, so maybe that was different, but he is actually one of the lads around here. So that's a good thing. I found the Ghanaian people particularly friendly, very happy, very delighted to be here. Very happy people, which is wonderful to see because you don't get that in the Western world for some reason. I don't know. When I went home in 1992, the biggest thing that struck me between Kenya and Ireland was how miserable everybody was in Ireland. And that's not just to do with the weather. They were in the rat race. They were paying mortgages. They were working very hard. And it's just a different... I found that very difficult when I went home back in 1992. I think, well, people in Africa have so little and yet they're so happy. And the community here is much better. Everybody looks out for themselves. And I think with affluence comes isolation. And I see that more and more in my country where I work as a GP. We're so much better off, but everybody is actually so much more miserable. And a lot of people are very isolated, particularly older people, which you guys just care for each other so much. And the community is just fantastic. Fantastic. I wish we could replicate some of that at home. So, and thank you for welcoming me to your country.
Welcome. So, I could see that you have experience about Africa, but I would like to know, for the very first time you come into Africa, were you having some misconceptions about Africa?
Yeah, I guess the misconception I would have had that is everybody was really poor and unhappy and miserable. I mean, the moment I arrived in Nairobi airport, within 3 hours, I realized that was not the way it was. And I couldn't get over the happiness here, the joy. Um, yeah, most people seem to be religious, and maybe that's something to do with it. I don't know, but there's certainly much better community, far better. And yeah, unfortunately, maybe sometimes Africa is portrayed in the Western world as a negatively. So I came away with a very positive experience, and I think you should get a more positive outlook. You should portray a more positive outlook. Maybe that's what you're trying to do with these videos. But yeah, it's a fantastic place to be, and I've had some wonderful times here.
All right. So you are wanting to actually go and buy coffee. So let us talk about food. What are some of the foods that you've tasted in Ghana?
I am very conservative when it comes to food. So, well, I've had some fish and chicken, but my kids laugh at me because they're much more adventurous. I'd always be looking for the most European thing on the menu. Sorry, but what's just move. And
Have you moved with any of it?
ugali, I think when I was in Kenya, maybe ugali in Kenya, which is like a rice thing in Kenya. I haven't this time, no, because I'm very conscious of not getting sick. So just my stomach wouldn't be the best of the best. Yeah, and I have to be back on work next week, so I can't be sick. Yeah.
So let me ask you one question. There are people back home in your country who have some misconceptions about Africa. I want you to tell them the reason why they should try Africa or Ghana and visit and experience Ghana or Africa for themselves.
I would recommend everybody should come to Africa at some point in their life. It's fantastic. It's the sunshine, it's the joy, it's the color, it's the splendor. Everything's a festival. Like you go to mass and it's like it goes on for 3 hours, which is dancing, and just the community spirit is incredible, and nothing that I've ever experienced, and I'm likely never to experience again. So I would recommend everybody to come to Africa. It's a wonderful place. People are so friendly, helpful, and just happy and sunny people. And food is good if you're adventurous. So yeah, and the beaches, some beaches are amazing, and of course the wildlife. What can I say? It's where my son is. There's an eagle's nest, which is in the Kokrobite, which is just very urban, and still there's an eagle's nest. I saw hawks here today, and obviously I've seen wonderful wildlife in Kenya, and we're going up to Vili waterfall tomorrow, so hopefully we'll see good things there too. Wonderful, absolutely amazing continent. Okay.
So I didn't get your name quite well.
Anne. Sinnott.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So we just had a conversation with Anne from Ireland. Thank you so much. Subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and you share. The last person.